We've been told that the Earth has went through 5 major ice ages over the course of millions of years, that the Earth has gone through many different cycles and ages and different facets of climate change and pole shift. We've been told that North America and parts of Europe and other continents were once covered in vast ice sheets. What if this didn't take millions of years, but rather thousands of years? What if the reality of these cycles of ice age happen in a lot shorter time span than what we're being told? We can even see on old ancient maps that parts of Antarctica used to be much greener, suggesting that there used to be other advanced civilizations that lived there. We can even see now that there's been documentation of these ancient pyramid structures that have been found in multiple places in Antarctica. So what if Antarctica used to be a much greener area of landmass, and there used to be actual civilizations that lived there? What if the truth to our reality was right in front of our own eyes and hiding in plain sight? What if we were to look to the heavens above and we could actually see the reality of the land where we live is actually right there on the moon that we're observing in the night sky? What if everything of this moon map has been verified to being much more accurate than we've been told? What if there was a 4-quarter theory that lined up with many different aspects of our reality, of our measurable and demonstrable reality? We can look at many different parts of our reality that seem to add up with this moon map. We can even look at the fact that there's much scientific evidence that the moon isn't actually what we're told it is, and that it's actually constructed of a plasma-like material. We can even look at different things hiding in plain sight, such as a astronomical clock in Prague that perfectly lines up with this, what I am referring to as the 4-quarter Earth theory. What if there was even more than just this clock, but there was ancient civilizations that spoke of this 4-quarter Earth theory, that this Earth cycles through in ancient hieroglyphs? What if we even had evidence of certain regions of the Earth and Antarctica that was freezing over more than other areas, and then it was thawing out more in other areas, that all suggested that we are coursing through what's called the 4-quarter Earth theory? Before we dive into the 4-quarter Earth theory, we're going to do a brief summary on just how accurate this moon map really is. And we're going to look at some of the abundance of evidence that point to the moon not being exactly what we're told it is. And then we'll go ahead and dive into the mind-blowing evidence of what I'm referring to as the 4-quarter Earth theory.
I wanted to share a video with everyone that I found fascinating, that was made by one of my oldest Flat Earth friends, who was there with me when I started my Flat Earth investigation. Here is my friend's channel, who goes by the name better known as WrongThink. I'll have a link in the description. I definitely recommend you subscribe to his channel. Now, I have been a subscriber of another channel called Vibes of Cosmos for a couple of years now, I think, and I always found his primary premise worth considering, but I have not agreed with it. I have watched a lot of his videos, but I cannot say I've seen everything of his, but I think he was the first one who made this claim. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. I'll have a link to the Vibes of Cosmos channel in the description as well. In short, the claim is that the moon's topography is somehow representative of the Earth's topography. In other words, the moon is somehow a real map of our world. Although I found the argument by Vibes of Cosmos thought-provoking, I have not agreed with it. But I always try to maintain an open but critical and objective mind. Flat Earth has certainly taught me to not judge ideas too quickly. Truth can come from anywhere, and the smallest channels. That said, my friend's video that you're about to watch makes the moon map claim a bit more plausible in my mind. I had never thought about the underwater topography aspect. I share it with my Flat Earth family, not because I want you to believe it, but so that you can likewise ponder it, reasonably debate it, and share your own thoughts and conclusions. My very intelligent friend has spent thousands of hours studying this topic and is 100% convinced that this is the smoking gun proof for the Flat Earth, and will be sharing more videos on the topic. Anyways, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Welcome to Cylonetical Physics Volume 1, an exercise in visual pattern recognition. Empiricism, a method of inquiry by which a postulation can be verified or disproved by direct evidence, measurement, or experiment. Core axioms. All maps are scale models of reality. Latitude and longitude are points on an Earth map projection that help you find a specific location. The scale of a map is the ratio used to correct the distance on the map projection to the corresponding distance on the ground. We now have empirical evidence of the true Earth map. The following is a series of Earth map projections. As a general rule, the horizontal red lines are latitude and the vertical red lines are longitude. As these lines intersect, they create bounded areas. The bounded areas of each projection cover the same area of Earth as the corresponding bounded areas on the other projections. The shapes of the bounded areas influence the shape of the continents contained therein. Despite the subtle differences, these are the same land masses. Here are several different projections of Africa. Notice the shape of the continent and the angles on the coastline changes. This is because of the coordinate system. When the bounded area is largely composed of wide rectangles, Africa becomes squat and wide. When the bounded area is largely composed of tall, thin rectangles, Africa becomes tall and thin. When the bounded areas containing Western Africa are thinner than the ones containing Central and Eastern Africa, Western Africa becomes noticeably more stout. The same thing happens with the other continents. The eastern edge of South America can be either pointed or flat, depending on the coordinate system. On the left is a cylindrical coordinate system, where the top line is the North Pole and the bottom line is the South Pole. Cylindrical map projections are the ones most people are most familiar with. On the right is a polar coordinate system, where the center point is the North Pole and the outermost circle is the South Pole. We can convert between coordinate systems. The top line in the cylindrical coordinate system becomes the central point in the polar coordinate system. The bottom line in the cylindrical coordinate system becomes the outermost circle in the polar coordinate system. The conversion also works in reverse. These conversions are easy to do in any image manipulation program, such as Photoshop or GIMP. If the geographic center, which is represented by the red dot, of the coordinate system is misaligned from the magnetic center, which is represented by the collapse point of the concentric latitudes, a waveform will be introduced in the conversion. This is analogous to the disparity between the magnetic and geographic north poles on Earth. In this coordinate system, the geographic center is different from the magnetic center of the coordinate system. Notice the waveform in the latitudes of the converted cylindrical projection. Even in the more exotic coordinate systems, the bounded areas cover the same areas of Earth. Equivalence between coordinate systems is verifiable by manipulating the bounded areas into the same shape. In order to convert A into B, we will first convert the polar coordinate system A into cylindrical coordinate system A prime, and we will convert polar coordinate system B into cylindrical coordinate system B prime. B prime has squares for every bounded area. Therefore, the bounded areas of A prime must all be converted into squares. Upon converting the irregular bounded areas of A prime into the regular squares of A double prime, equivalence between A double prime and B prime has been verified. Notably, the Americas have increased in size. Africa has shrunk slightly. South America and Australia have moved to the right, and Europe has moved to the left, all in accordance with straightening the zigzagging longitudes. Converting A double prime back to polar verifies equivalence between the original polar projection B as well. Even the largest ground-based objects, such as mountains and skyscrapers, shrink and fade to obscurity at distances of several dozen miles. In fact, only 2 objects are visible from every location on the surface of the Earth: the Sun and the Moon. The Sun is a source, a locus, if you will, of blinding light, more or less devoid of discernible features. The Moon, on the other hand, not only possesses discernible features, those features are its defining characteristic. The other defining characteristic of the Moon is its phases: new to waxing to full to waning and back to new. An eternal cycle. This introductory episode will focus exclusively on the first quarter moon phase, better known as the waxing half moon. I must stress, this is not an arbitrary half moon, but the half moon is defined in observable reality by the shadow terminator line. Take note of the discernible features of the waxing half moon. An interesting thing happens if you mirror the moon and focus on the waxing half. Let's apply an unsharp mask filter to make the darks slightly darker and the lights slightly lighter. Finally, we'll apply a coordinate system. Let's revisit the off-center polar to cylindrical conversion to convert our polar moon image into a cylindrical one. Apply continental boundaries. Apply coordinate system. Color the land green and the water blue. Let's deconstruct this and examine it in more detail. Let's begin with an unmanipulated moon image. Let's ensure the accuracy of the continental outlines. Let's address the anomalies which are present in the moon image, but left out of the outline. Every one of these anomalies are present in relief maps of the Earth, which show the elevated lands underwater. Let's look at East Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Yellow Sea area. Separating the light from the dark reveals the shape of the land underneath. And Japan and Korea become instantly recognizable and at the appropriate latitude and longitude. South of Japan are several long arms of land clearly visible on the moon and on relief maps. South and east of this area, between Australia and the Americas, is the largest anomaly on the map. Relief maps show us this is Eastern Oceania, that is Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia. Over 10,000 islands scattered across tens of millions of square miles of ocean. East of South America, off the southern coast of Brazil, is the Rio Grande Plateau, or the Rio Grande Rise, clearly visible on relief maps. 120 to 270 miles west of the coast of India's southwestern Malabar coast lie the Lakshadweep Islands, clearly visible on relief maps. 450 miles south of this, along the Chagos Laccadive Ridge, are the Maldives. East of this is the 90 East Ridge, which, unsurprisingly, rides the 90 East longitude. Off the western coast of northern Namibia in Africa lies the Walvis Ridge. Between South Africa and Madagascar is the Mozambique Ridge. In conclusion, not only are all continents visible on the moon and consistent with stated latitude and longitude, all major ocean ridges on world relief maps are present and consistent as well. Only 2 objects are visible from every location on the surface of the Earth, and the only one with discernible features bears every location on the surface of the Earth as those discernible features. This is not a coincidence. The next episode will cover the magnetodielectric field as an electric circuit and deal with how and why a plasma projection of a geographic terrain through a magnetic field will bear distortions due to the presence of that magnetic field.
In 1965, Professor R. Foster challenged the corrupt scientific complex by stating that landing on the moon was an impossibility. It is an impossibility, according to Foster, because the moon is plasma and not solid. Here is what he said in an interview.
What is your theory? Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation. Scientific views expressed all over the world now that the moon seems to be of a quite different nature of what was assumed.
But the Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Well, that will never happen. Not on the moon. On Mars, on Venus, on other planets, yes, but the moon is definitely, as I assert, a plasma.
Like most that speak out, Foster was most likely controlled opposition. Notice that he says it is possible to land on other planets, but not the moon. It is likely that it was his task to introduce a half-truth, that the moon is a plasma phenomenon, only for his claims to be, quote, debunked and proved wrong, unquote, a few years later, after they staged the moon landings. Since Foster's claim, however, our own access to technology in recent years has allowed us to investigate the moon in more detail. And through this we see over and over again varying instances of the moon behaving in a way that debunks a lie that it is a ball of rock. We see with our own eyes a semi-transparent moon, either at night or while there is still daylight. We see the sky through the moon. Sometimes it is even possible to see stars directly through the moon. Many have repeatedly demonstrated that moonlight is colder than the shade at night, and therefore it cannot be reflected sunlight as it possesses no residual warmth. We also know that spherical objects do not reflect light. By the laws of reflection, the light concentrates into a highlight point and does not reflect. You can also see frequent crescent moons when both the moon and the sun are within close proximity of each other, meaning that it is impossible for the sun to be casting the Earth's shadow onto the moon. So if the moon is a plasma phenomenon, then how could this be formed in the first place?
I feel like I just stumbled across secret paperwork that literally proves we might have not landed on the moon, and that the moon is a plasma. And listen, people have told me the moon is a plasma, and I even thought it was a little bit bonkers. Also, I totally did believe we landed on the moon. The moon. Until I read what I'm about to tell you. This could rework our entire understanding of gravity, which I already contemplated. And that basically the tides of the ocean are not controlled by gravity or the moon in the way we think. This is insane. Okay, I'm about to take you on a crazy deep dive, so get ready. Just a quick backstory. This all started because I'm writing a book on plasma intelligence. Plasma is the fourth state of matter. It's an ionized gas. You could check out my plasma intelligence to learn more about that. But upon my research of my science chapter in my book, I came across this. Okay, let's get into it. So there's an amazing YouTube video with this scientist. His name is Mr. Foster. He's a Tasmanian scientist. And in 1965, he claimed that the moon was plasma and landing on it is not possible. Once again, I thought this was bunkers. Just get ready. In the video, he goes on to say, if the moon is found to be plasma, a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. He said the mass of the moon is less than assumed, a different state of energy and far less mass. This would remove the moon affecting the tides. Don't worry, I'm going to get to why this all actually makes sense. The moon being plasma would mean all gravitational theories are out. The moon does not affect the tides. The concept of the cosmos and its laws has to be evolved. Yes. And then he finishes with the moon is definitely, as I assert, a plasma. You can go watch the video. Once again, this obviously sounds like lunacy. But it is not, and let me show you why, because I stumbled across something on the internet that blew my mind. So basically, I was researching something called plasma sheaths, which is when two plasmas come together that are different in characteristics, and it forms what is called a double sheath, which is a layer of positive and negative charge. It's like if they're two pieces of Velcro connecting. So upon searching on sheaths, it said something about how there's proof in 2003, let me show you, that there is a lunar double layer of plasma sheath. It said in the shadows, the moon charges negatively in the interplanetary medium. The moon charges negatively? This led me down the rabbit hole I'm about to take you on. Okay, I stumbled across this paper. I feel like I should not have been able to stumble across this, but I did. And I was like, plasma dust on the moon's surface and exosphere. So is the moon made of plasma? And y'all, this makes sense. I don't know about you, but the way the moon glows in the sky just doesn't make sense to me. Like a rock glowing up with the sun. I've seen rocks on Earth. They don't glow shimmering in the sun. But because the moon has plasma or is made of plasma would explain why it might glow. This is real stuff, guys. Now, why does this disprove our theory of gravity? The most important part of this. Now, there's a paper written by a scientist about gravity being just a theory. It talks about the flaws of gravity that has to do with the tides. He talks about how you can explain a high tide on the opposite side of Earth at the same time. That there are two, not one, high tides every day. He talks about how tides were given to us by an intelligent creator long ago. And the evidence of two tides falsifying gravity. I don't know. Gravity is not what we think it is. And I'm not saying I know everything about this. I wish I was more of a genius. I haven't, unfortunately, studied enough science to solve this, but eventually I will. I don't care who figures it out. Let's just figure out the truth, huh?
The moon map of Earth suggests that the moon is a reflection of all of Earth's surfaces, showing 1/4 of it being where we live. A 1964 newspaper article shows moon, mirage, reflection of Earth's surface. So I was talking to my astronomer buddy, David Shane, and he says he gets really close on the moon with his telescope, and sometimes it appears to look like ice. Then he persists to tell me about this scientific concept that water can hold memory. And sometimes water, when frozen into ice, it will show the image that that water was reflecting before it was frozen. So then I found this. There's these scientists, they drop some flowers down into water and then examine the drops of that water under a microscope, and they see images of the flower. Check this out.
A while later, we took a drop of water, and here you can see one of the pictures. And you can see it in this picture. It's the typical image you get when you put a flower into water. You could recognize the flower in every single drop in this glass, of course. That can be reproduced and has significance. And if you were to put a different flower in here, for example, a Sweet William flower, then all the drops of this water would look like Sweet William.
Wait, what? Then honestly, it makes a lot of sense that the moon would be a reflection of all the land of Earth. Now we're all just throwing theories around here, but man, come on, lines up.
Once we start to take a closer look at all these different features of the moon, from lunar waves to plasma dust to what appears to be a very accurately depicted reflection of this reality we know as Earth, the moon appears to be not what we're told it is, and very well could be actually plasma. Now, I actually came across this four-quarter Earth theory from a user named Seven Club, and I will leave a link to his channel in the description box below. But he's incredibly inquisitive and has a way of tying all the pieces of the puzzle together in a way that makes the overall picture make a lot of sense. Now, I decided to compile all of this information and put together some visual demonstrations and some animations, and as well as some new evidence that I came across to put all this together in one detailed, carefully curated video presentation. So with this being said, let's go ahead and dive into some of this evidence of the four-quarter Earth theory.
A new map appeared showing a flat Earth map and the lands beyond the Antarctic wall. It looks like a flat Earth moon map. It's unknown where this map is from, but some people claim it's from the United Nations. The map has a lot of details describing how everything works. It's written in German, but I will try giving you the English translation by using Google Translator. So I am sorry if there is errors or if something doesn't make sense. Enoch section 4, chapter 18. And I saw the vessels of all winds, and saw how he adorned the whole shed with them, and the foundations of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth, and saw the four winds that carry the earth, and the firmament of heaven. And I saw how the winds stretch out the height of heaven, and they hover between heaven and earth. These are the four pillars of all heaven. And I saw the winds that turn the heavens, that bring down the circle of the sun and all the stars.
Did the moon map of Earth resonate with you? Well, it's about to resonate way more. There's this theory that the moon represents our Earth, and only 1/4 is our known Earth, and it moves around, like the clock in Prague. As you can see, there's a constellation wheel. The sun and moon are both connected in the center of this. And honestly, what if this constellation wheel moves around in centuries of time around the entirety of Earth? I call this the 4/4 theory, like the 4 quarters in ancient cosmology and mythology. The 4 quarters of Earth that Enoch talks about. The 4 quarters in several Bibles, scriptures, and quarters definition is a fourth of something or a place in which you can dwell, which it's weird that this is literally 1/4 of this, and it's the quarters in which we dwell. So is this moon projection that kind of looks like the land from Earth enough evidence for us to believe in something like this? Probably not, because really it doesn't match up perfectly, but I've got some evidence. In order for this theory to even be somewhat plausible, we need 3 things to be happening for sure. Number 1, the magnetic north would have to be moving. And guess what? It is. In the direction that it would need to be moving for this theory to be true. But wait, if the magnetic north and the magnetic field is moving northwest, north compared to what? That is the north. Wait, what if there's another north right here in the center? You know, the Mercator map has 4 quarters, 4 rivers, and an ultimate center. Doesn't that kind of look like it? But either way, we have 2 more major things for this to be even plausible, and that is the ice in Antarctica, West Antarctica to be exact, should be melting, and the ice in East Antarctica should be freezing, and it is. This is all melting, and this is all freezing, and has a higher elevation. Why? Well, because it's constantly freezing more, and the lower elevation is because it's melting more. Now, also, direct sunlight in Africa should be increasing. The Sahara Desert should be growing. South, to be exact. Isn't that something? Huh. Yeah, you should maybe do some math too here, because it's weird at the rate that it's moving. Okay, fine, but South America should be increasingly freezing more. And it is. Yeah, that's right. It is. Here's what's cool, too. This explains silly climate change and ice ages, too. Not to mention finding strange animals and structures in the ice that's melting in Antarctica. Oh, the climate crisis, it's you and my's fault. What if they're just using this crisis to get some money, but then also to say you're the problem? You know, you're the one who's causing these emissions. No, come on. Hey, and also, we are not having an energy crisis either. Think about the old world ships. This place was like an entire city that floated around, charged on these Tesla coils. Look, we can harness the ether energy, and I think they're doing that, throwing a price tag on it. But that's the thing. This theory, it brings all of the conspiracies kind of together. Makes it obvious of what they've been hiding. They throw stuff like this out there, and this with zero evidence as to how this could even be, when all the while a model like this explains everything. Just think about it. So when they said flat Earth was a psyop, maybe it kind of is. Maybe they're only giving us 1/4 of what we really need to be looking into. By the way, I don't use this moon projection as all of my evidence. No, I look at all of the other things that line this thing up for a home run.
Do you think it's possible that the sun has just slowly melted everything and made our Antarctic basins, it's just slowly getting a little bit bigger and bigger?
Sure. Yeah, I think for sure. In fact, I said years ago that I thought maybe the whole global warming thing is because they're afraid of the fact that the sun is going to melt the outer ice wall and then create fissures in it or a way to get through it. So they had to make this whole campaign about global warming so that people they could make moves and do things and put things in the sky or whatever they need to do, basically saying it's global warming when really it's just because the sun is getting further out and melting further out. But
I'm not pole shifts, but we'll get into that. Global warming, of course. See, that's the thing. You know, if we stick to the AE map, the flat Earth map, we say Polaris never moves. We say the pole's not going to shift. You know, there is no climate change. That stuff's all garbage. And then what if this is the truth And then how dumb are we going to look when there is a pole shift? And then what is that going to do? Are they building us up, limiting us to just the AE flat Earth map? Are they limiting us to that and then to where science wins in the end because there will be a pole shift because the Antarctic ice in the west is melting and the east is freezing and Polaris is slowly moving. The magnetic north is moving and it's increasing in speed, by the way. Okay, that's the narrative. Now, if that doesn't happen and it's not happening, well, then that's another story. But the thing is it just might be. Now, check this out. Here's when it comes to the magnetic north. This is the general consensus here. Yes, Earth's magnetic north pole is gradually shifting and moving northwest. See, that is what was weird to me. How can the Earth's magnetic north pole, which is north, I mean, it's how you know what north is because of our magnetic north. How can a north pole move north? North to what? The only way that a magnetic north could move northwest is if there's another north here. Here. Then it could move northwest. And then Polaris. You see, that's another thing. If the magnetic field moves, if magnetic north moves, and Polaris is connected to the magnetic north, then that would mean Polaris would have to move too. But then you're saying, oh, 7 Club, that's a Glober thing. That's a heliocentric model thing. No, it's not. It's a 4-quarter thing. If the system is moving in that way, then Polaris would have to move. If we believe that Polaris is stuck to the magnetic North Pole, that's the luminary that is above our north, point blank, period. And it's really moving. And if that ever gets verified, well, then I could see Globers trying to use that against our current flat Earth model that we all believe. Because then they'll be like, oh, that proves the globe because it's all we're spinning and wobbling through space. Oh, da 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 da. No, how about this? Because this would debunk the entire globe. If this is moving around, think about it. Think about the stuff that they're going to try to use against our current model. Like in 1,000 years, let's say we all do figure out the Earth's flat, right? The whole world figures it out. And then they start using this stuff. The magnetic north moving. Oh, we had a pole shift. How could a pole shift work on a flat Earth? You only have one pole. How could Polaris move on a flat Earth? You said it's always stationary. It's always in the same place and it never moves. I could see them using all of this stuff against the flat Earth community in the future. We've known the Earth was a globe for 2,000 years. Is 2,000 years how long it takes? 2,000 years from now, I could see them flipping it all right back around and using it against us. So anyway, let's watch what the current narrative is about pole shifts, and let's just take a look at it.
Did you know that Earth has 2 North Poles? There's the geographic North Pole, which never changes, and there's the magnetic North Pole, which is always on the move. And right now, it's moving faster than usual. Over the last 150 years, the magnetic North Pole has casually wandered 685 miles across northern Canada. But right now, it's racing 25 miles a year to the northwest. This could be a sign that we're about to experience something humans have never...
Hold on. I want you to think about that. 25 miles a year is how fast it's moving now. So if the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference, then in 1,000 years, everything that everywhere we are right now would be covered in ice. The pole would have done a complete 360 around the Earth. If it's the globe, but if it's the other thing, what does that look like? Okay, so the current narrative is if you're living on the globe, well, there's going to be a pole shift and it's going to wipe out the whole world. So just, be ready for it. That's what's going on. That's climate change for you, and that's your fault. So, yeah, everybody just hang out, stay here. Here in about 1,000 years, you're all going to be gone anyway, and this whole world's going to be turned to ice, and there's nothing you can do. Oh, it was the pole shift. Yeah. All the while, they have Antarctica sectioned off. Okay? Are you listening? They have an off-limit parameter around us. All the while the pole is shifting. How about the sun's moving? How about maybe it will cause some cataclysms? How about they already have the plan and are stationed up? If this is true, and there's a way out, and they section us off here and just give us doom our whole lives and say, oh, that's just the way it is. We'll be here and, well, the poles will shift and then we'll all be gone. Then they could rewrite history as many times as they wanted. And no one could ever do anything about it. They could do anything they wanted.
And what do the scriptures have to say about this? It's right there in Enoch's reference to the 4 quarters of the world. Our magnetic field, according to Enoch, lies in the geographic north of the greater realm. And the first quarter is called the east, because it is the first. And the second, the south, because the Most High will descend there. And the west quarter is named the diminished. And the fourth quarter, named the north, is divided into 3 parts. First of them is for the dwelling of men. The second contains seas of water, the abysses and forests and rivers, and darkness and clouds. And the third part, the garden of righteousness. The vortex is in the center of the realm, or what is more appropriately termed true north. The X-ray image of the land on the moon map does not display this vortex, but, as discussed, it is present in the second image of the firmament. At the crown of the firmament, we see it reflected, the navel of the world. It could be that the garden of righteousness that Enoch refers to, and what is also known as Hyperborea, is located right where Sturgios has plotted it. But this land is not the true north or central vortex. That can only exist in the center. And as stated before, there is some curvilinear distortion present in the composite image on the moon's face. I have used my little colourful map here strictly for illustrative purposes. I am not a map maker, but I did attempt to smooth some of this distortion out. Let's hope Sturgios tackles the distortion. And in both my quick attempt and the actual moon map, we do see a body of land right in the center. Right here. Perhaps this is the garden of righteousness, surrounding the central vortex. And perhaps Enoch's reference to it being located in our northern quarter is because it can only be accessed from within this quarter. Who knows? It is likely that the controllers deliberately put Hyperborea at the Arctic in the fraudulent maps to throw anyone of a curious and adventurous nature off track. If someone set out to find true north, using these maps, they would fail. And because of the distinction between magnetic and geographic direction, finding true north would be a monumental feat, even without their deceptions. If anyone wanted to truly journey to the center of our greater realm, they would have a very hard time, and they would need to forsake the compass altogether. If the geographic south of our magnetic field is down here, with the lands usually associated with south, then the central vortex of the greater realm falls within our geographic north. But we would not be able to reach it with the compass pointed north. It is not located at our north magnetic pole. If you use a compass to travel north, you will end up traveling here. If the South Pole is the entire Antarctic circle, then to travel to the true north, you would need to go south. But even then, this would most likely fail. If the center is made of iron, then at some point it would supersede the southern magnetic pole of our magnetic field. If by chance you were lucky to head in the direction of true north, then the compass would most likely fail altogether due to the iron core. As the mysterious text, the Inventio Fortunata, states, here the ship's compass loses its property, and no vessel with iron on board is able to get away. The only way to get to true north is by celestial navigation via Polaris, a skill set that has been generally eradicated from common knowledge. And I bet these oceans are heavily guarded. We will be returning to magnetic fields later in our journey.
You know I've been all about this map lately. Check this out. You know how Truth Peter pointed out the seed of life pattern, and it lays over this map showing a circle going around a bigger circle, and then a circle in the center. Look what I found in Enoch. Look at this. Talking about I made the solid waters ice, right? That is to say the bottomless, right? Down below. And I made a foundation of light around the water, right? The sun's circuit around. And I created 7 great circles inside it. Yo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now remember, I theorized that the Mercator could be the very center of this all-encompassing map, and we've got this mountain in the middle. What if that's Mount Zion? You should look into what Mount Zion is. Look at Hebrews 26 through 28. Once again, I will shake not only the earth, but the heavens also. This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things will remain. Since we are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping Him with holy fear and awe, for our God is a devouring fire. Now, these 7 circles, right? See, they go around this bigger circle. But here, the 7th circle, right here in the center. See, if this light, this sun, went all the way around over centuries and centuries, you know that there's one area of land here right in the middle that will always have day and night, always have sunlight, always remain, right? Now, you know about the spiral of life, right? The Fibonacci sequence, the spiral of life. Everything living, moving, growing has a spiral pattern in its growth and development. This is the seed of life. Now, if in this whole grand scheme of things, if this were spiraling, you know, the earth and the heavens will be moved. Look, the stars, sun, and moon would have to move with this inhabitable land, melting the ice, creating new territory. Look, but there would be one place that would always remain. Right there, in the 7th circle. So just theoretically speaking, what if, over time, all things pass away until the one kingdom remains?
It's been right in front of our faces every single day, literally. It is likely that no one has connected the dots here before because of this particular unknown landmass, which Sturgios has appropriately named Lemuria. And this landmass is very important because we know that it does not exist anymore. Theories of Lemuria's existence as a lost continent have been around since the 19th century, with most plotting its location somewhere around the Indian Ocean. Those in the 19th century also spoke of another lost continent called Mu, They are one and the same thing. Old maps of Mu plot the land exactly where it is on the moon. And in 2007, Masaki Kimura discovered huge structures, including pyramids, castles, and roads, on the ocean floor, some way from Japan, a location very similar to where Lemuria is plotted here on the moon. The continent sunk years and years ago, and this is very useful because it means that this image is not an active reflection, but a moment captured in time before the continent sunk. The second image we are simultaneously witnessing in our moon is that of the firmament itself. Yes, you heard me right. The moon is the only known official image of our firmament. The face of the moon is a composite image, and we have to separate the images to fully understand what we are seeing. We have the landmass of the greater realm, and this is one image from one angle. And then we have another image from a different angle. I can only illustrate this by showing you. This specific area of the moon is primarily what gives the phenomenon its spherical 3D appearance. The heliocentric liars love this area of the moon, and they have used it as a weapon of deceit against us. It is not a crater with rays, like they tell us. Look closer. Really look. This is not the markings of a spherical object. It is the apex of the domed firmament from within the dome. Watch closely. This is the composite image on the moon, presenting both images simultaneously. And this is an interior of a hemisphere dome. And now, you see, if you align the central apex point of an interior hemisphere dome, then it becomes quite obvious. If you erase the remaining vector lines of the dome, then it becomes really obvious. And once you see it, it becomes very hard to unsee. It isn't a sphere. That is an optical illusion. It is the markings of a hemisphere dome. And not only is this the interior apex crown of the firmament, it is also a reflection of the center of our realm below. This area of the moon lends its spherical shape because of the so-called rays that emanate from it. But as you can see, it is an optical illusion. The rays are actually hemispherical ribs stemming from the dome's crown. This area in the middle of these ribs is not a crater. That is the vortex directly beneath the highest point of the dome. The controllers have named this area Tycho. It was given this name, we are told, by Jesuit astronomer Giovanni Riccioli in 1651. If it was not for Tycho, then the controllers of our realm would have a very hard time convincing millions that they lived on a giant spinning ball. And like with everything else, they have used Tycho to hide things in plain sight. For instance, another 17th century Masonic astronomer named Pierre Gassendi called it Umbilicus Lunaris, the navel of the moon, which is interesting as Norse mythology uses the same simile of the navel to describe Vergelmir, the whirlpool in the center of our realm. Arthur C. Clarke's Space Odyssey, one of the most famous science fiction novels of all time, features a crater on the moon named Tycho. In the novel, scientists find that there is a strong magnetic field emanating from the crater and discover that it is coming from a black cube monolith buried 15 meters within the crater. A black monolith, a rupes nigra, a magnetic black rock. If you separate the two images, then you can see clearly how they are in fact two images of two different angles that somehow have ended up superimposed on each other. We do not see any oceans or water mass captured in the first image, which suggests there is some kind of X-ray radiation at play. We don't see the vortex at the center in the first image for this reason. And again, No one knows how these images were formed, but if some kind of radiation beams were responsible, then the first image, the land masses of our greater realm, were most likely captured as the rays hit the firmament. And as those rays were reflected into our ionosphere and began forming the plasma mass we call the moon, it is likely that the second image was captured. And that is the image of the firmament, of the structure existing above us. And that's why we can see the outline of this structure, the stars beyond this structure, and the reflection of the vortex and other great deeps below. The moon is a masterpiece of distorted perspective, a plasma embodiment of as above, so below. The North Magnetic Pole is slowly moving, and it is as natural as the sun and moon's concentric journey above us. And this is why the symbol of the black sun is a 12-spoked wheel. Each spoke represents a fixed constellation of the zodiac. Each section is an individual age. And the result is a situation like this. Every 2,160 years, our North Magnetic Pole circles the inner solid core and vortex by 30 degrees. This is why the pole has moved from Canada and is en route to Siberia. It is traversing the outer central circle, or what is more appropriately termed the magnetic circle. We live inside of a perfect clock, inside of God's clock. The sun and moon circle our magnetic North Pole, which is situated roughly at the center of our known world's landmass. But this magnetic North Pole circles the inner vortex and completes a full revolution every 25,920 years, or what is referred to as a great year. Each great year consists of 12 precessional or astronomical ages of 2,160 years each. We are on the cusp of entering the age of Aquarius, and this is why our magnetic North Pole is en route to Siberia. As the North Magnetic Pole circumvents a central magnetic circle, the toroidal magnetic field moves with it. The sun and moon are bound in their revolution by our magnetic North Pole, and because of this, they move within our magnetic toroidal field only. This is why the magnetic North Pole will always be the center of our known world. As I said before, the first image of the landmass presented in the moon's face is likely akin to an X-ray image and has not captured any water mass. And because of this, it has only recorded the areas of our realm with high density, such as the land. In the same way, an X-ray image will capture the parts of our bodies with the highest density, like the bone, but not the blood in our veins. In a sense, it is appropriate to view the landmass captured here as skeletal, and because of this, it has not captured the water or ocean surrounding our land, nor does it display a differentiation between the frozen landmass and that which is not frozen. If the sun's concentric journey above us is bound by the North Magnetic Pole here and its magnetic toroidal field, and this entire magnetic field is moving with the pole, then it is likely we have a situation of a changing climate as this process unfolds. All areas outside of our magnetic field will inevitably be frozen and dark due to the lack of sunlight. And this is consistent with what some of the scriptures have told us. I saw the great rivers, and I came to the great river, and to the great darkness, and went to the place where no flesh walks. I saw the mountains of the darkness of winter. This is your ice wall, and it's not a constant, fixed wall. It is continually melting and refreezing with the revolution of the pole over the course of a great year, and each astronomical age. Do you now understand why they are terrified of the ice melting, of our Earth supposedly heating up, and why this demonic joke of a man wants to dim the sun? They are using natural climate change due to the rotation of the magnetic pole to justify a whole host of useless measures and money laundering. They are terrified because they are on the verge of losing all control of the narrative. We must save the precious Antarctica from melting, the last unspoiled place on Earth. But as you can see, there is no landmass for us to call Antarctica. It is a complete lie. When they refer to Antarctica, there is only the Antarctic Circle, and a lot of the footage at the so-called Antarctica could have been taken at any location around this circle. As you can also see, the land masses of South America, New Zealand and Australia all fall within close proximity to the outer edge of the greater world map, and would therefore be within close proximity to the foundations of the firmament itself. This is most likely the reason there is heavy military presence in these regions. The changing climate, the melting of the Antarctic Circle, is as natural as day and night. It is a macro process of the larger clock we live within.
Okay. Most of us have been told that they didn't even know the United States, the landmass of the United States, existed as it is. Well, that is not true. And this is pretty spot on, okay? So here's what's interesting, though. And I came across this years ago. This area down here, now I got a copy of this map from one of my subscribers, bought me one. It's a 10 by 10 image. This right down here, see it's in red? Now this represents the Antarctica land masses. It's in red because it was called, now again, remember, this is 16th century. It's called Terra del Fuego, land of fire. Okay? Again, this is 16th century. Terra del Fuego, land of fire. Okay.
Wonder why it would be called that.
Well, wait a minute. I'm going to, hey, good question. So I'm going to show you something else that's really interesting. Let me stop sharing this here. What had happened is they discovered that the entire, underneath the ice, is hundreds of volcanoes. Okay. And let's see if I can share that. And lava flows. Okay. You can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So under the Antarctic ice, hundreds of volcanoes, countless, and lava flows. So wait a minute. So in the 15 something to 1600, this dude draws a map that shows it was called Terra del Fuego. Okay? Hundreds of years ago, we didn't have orbiting science platforms doing land analysis and looking through the ice. Okay?
Right.
Okay. So why is that important at all? Well, if I switch the browser, does it switch?
Yeah, it switches. Yeah.
Back to the map.
Praise God. All right. So in this map, this is the overall screenshot. First of all, the east starts up here in the map, and the west goes down here at Terra del Fuego. The middle is not the north. We call Polaris the northern star. It's not the north. There's a magnetic field. By the way, there's no such thing as a southern polar field in a magnet. They are converging and diverging fields that go like a toroidal shape. That's how magnetism works. Okay, and those two diverging and converging fields attract one another, and if you both are converging, they repel. So all these ideas, these dualism ideas, okay, of North and South Pole. So there must be a South Pole. There is no such thing as a South Pole. There isn't even anything as a North Pole. is magnetic north. But in this map, again, the dude was accurate enough to put in land of fire. Then hundreds of years later, we discover lava flows and hundreds of volcanoes. In this map, this is the north. This is the north. Okay? So this is what I'm getting at, is that even our understanding, everything is so askew. The great deception is so great that it's even hard to discern where east, west, south, north, and south is. Okay? And so this is the north. Again, on this map, and the dude got this area down here accurate, and no one.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me, and I'll be happy to.
What I find really fascinating about the areas that are called out on this Urbano Monte map is that they didn't have the technology to chart and use radar to find all of this green area and volcanoes in Antarctica, almost 500 years ago. And to me, it seems like that land in Antarctica, a lot of it was thawed out and it melted in certain regions of Antarctica, which is why it's showing on that map that there's these volcanoes and all this green area, because of the cycles that the sun and moon go through on the four quarters of the world map. As it gets closer to certain regions of Antarctica, it's going to thaw out those areas, and you're going to see the land that's always been there in ancient ruins and different features of past civilizations that were there are now going to be exposed. When you look into the mud floods, these, structures that are half buried under the earth and then are exposed, and then ancient animals that are frozen in ice. They say with, Vibes of Cosmos says that the North Magnetic Pole moves and changes position every 2,167 years. So it makes a full cycle after 26,000 years. So with all these lands thawing out and then other lands freezing over as it makes this cycle throughout the four quarters of the earth, you're going to have different regions of land or outer lands that are being thawed out, and those ancient civilizations, their history is going to be shown when these lands are thawed out, and it's going to cycle out every 2,167 years, which they would call an ice age, but that's just the natural process of the four-quarter Earth theory where we live. And even with the Urbano Monte map, you can see with Terra del Fuego, Terra Gallica, Terra Labac, you can see all these different specific lands that are called out on the map, Urbano Monte map, and these exact same shapes have been shown. They're shown on the map of the moon map. So it just goes to show that there's a lot of accuracies that were called out hundreds of years ago that they shouldn't have even known otherwise. But it even gets more interesting when we look into ancient civilizations and what they spoke about the four-quarter Earth theory.
This is where it's going to get real exciting. This dude says, holy crap, the four quarters Earth guy, the circle, quarters, circle, and the cross is a Hopi symbol left by the Pahana, just listen, white brother, in the beginning of time. That symbol and the swaz, I ain't going to say this word out loud, and the yada dada, swaz, oldest peace symbol was left to identify them. Pahana, when they returned to America, they disappeared shortly after leaving the symbols. That makes perfect sense, he says. And I'm like, what? Pahana, Swazi, what are you talking about, dude? Then I took a closer look at the map. And look what's covered in this map, dude. There's one. There's one. Okay? There's one. There's this ancient culture that are described as, honestly, they sound like the tall whites to me. You know how they would say there's these different races of of interdimensional beings, aka aliens, aka angels, or maybe even fallen angels. I don't know, but they describe them as tall and pale skin, tall whites, dude. They kind of sound like that. Look, here's what it said when I looked into this Pahana people. First, I was looking into this thing, okay, and it says in Hinduism the right-facing symbol clockwise is called swaz, symbolizing Shira, the sun. The sun. Isn't it a black sun symbol too, you guys? The black sun. All right. So it's prosperity and good luck, while the left-facing symbol, the other way, is called the Savas, whatever, symbolizing night or tantric aspects of Kali. Okay, now, check this out. I looked into the people, the Pahana people. See, Mustache Man was using this symbol as an Aryan thing, right? But I don't believe that that's the case. I think it was a race of people more described as the tall whites. They kind of sound more like I don't know. Just you let your mind wander here. But here's their physical traits. The Hopi Pahana is described in various ways, often depicted as tall, fair-skinned figures with a beard, bearing symbols of his spiritual authority. He is said to come with two companions, one representing purity and the other representing abundance. The Pahana is also associated with the swaz, an ancient symbol used by many cultures worldwide to represent spiritual harmony and balance. Now, just hang with me here. Here's one of their hieroglyphs of these people that were found. And looky here. They got that symbol as a sun. As a sun. Now, wait till you find out what this whole thing represents. Now, looky here. Cross, or 4 quarters. Now, just wait. Wait till we break this hieroglyph down, dude. I really honestly, I pray you're ready for this. I just pray you're ready. All right? For real. Because I found this associated with this hieroglyph. It says, did a little known Hopi prophecy come true in 2015? Hopi prophecy? Well, what does that mean? Well, to answer your question, you'll have to understand that I personally fall between casual musician and da-da-da. He's just going into his history. This doesn't really matter, but right here's where it gets interesting. Listen to this. In September of 2015, Our Children's Trust lawsuit rolled out into courts in New York with Dr. James Hansen, which is a what? Dr. James Hansen, an ex-NASA climate scientist. Delivering Exhibit A, OCT, is a first-time ever global lawsuit which was put in place with Vatican backing. I'm aware of this because as a graphic designer, the global Catholic climate movement was sent with everything they needed to carry out their important work in Assisi, Italy, during the summer of 2015. Volunteering with the global Catholic climate movement that summer led to a donation of around 50 hours of work that they had the media needed for global meeting, t-shirts, banners, blah, 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 1/4 page flyers. Yeah, it's just coincidence. Social media posts were designed and accumulated. Now look at these shirts they made. It's Global Catholic Climate Movement, right? The Catholic Climate Petition. They got an earth on there, separated into 4 quarters. But just wait. This is where it gets really interesting. So let's assume that the great event is first ever global litigation that indigenous people around the globe, they keep saying globe, I hate that, have been expecting. So let's take a look at the diagram that Frank Waters describes in his book in the 1960s. Here's the hieroglyph, which they're calling it a petroglyph. But listen to what this means. Listen to the symbolism here. You're going to flip out. Near Orabi, Arizona, there is a petroglyph known as the Prophecy Rock, which symbolizes many Hopi prophecies. Its interpretation is, listen to this, the large human figure, maybe giants, right? On the left is the Great Spirit. The bow in his left hand represents his instructions to the Hopi to lay down their weapons. Okay. The vertical line to the right of the Great Spirit is a time scale in thousands of years. The point at which the Great Spirit touches the line is the time of his return. Now listen to this. The life path established by the Great Spirit divides into the lower narrow path of continuous life in harmony with nature, and the wide upper road of white man's scientific achievements. Now, right here, listen to this. The bar between the paths above the cross is the coming of white men, the cross of Christianity. The circle below represents the continuous path of life. The circle, continuous path of life. Now, listen to this. This is where I dropped it, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to read this article to everybody. In this next paragraph, the 4 small human figures on the upper road represent, on one level, the past 3 worlds and the present. Yo, are you serious? I'm going to read that one more time. The 4 small human figures on the upper road represent, on one level, the past 3 worlds and the present. So, whoa, hold on a second. Let's go back to this map. So if this is divided into 4 quarters, and each quarter is inhabitable when the sun's there, then that would be the present quarter, or the present dwelling place. The other 3 would be the past 3 worlds. I'm going to let that resonate. I'm going to let just that sink in for a minute for you. Now, I'm not using this as any kind of, this isn't about white people. This isn't, whatever. It's not about that. These were tall, pale-skinned people. And literally, the people who have come out of underground bases have talked about the tall whites. There's the tall whites, the small grays, all this other stuff. The past 3 worlds. Crazy. The Hopi will travel the white man's path. See, they made this about race. I don't think it's about human race. I almost believe this is a different kind of spiritual being. Okay? The 2 circles on the lower path of life, the great shaking of the earth, World Wars I and II, the Swaz, the sun, and the Celtic cross represent the 2 helpers of Pahana and the true white brother. See, I think people made this about race when it's not. I think it was these beings, possibly angels, Who knows?
What if these ancient hieroglyphs from this ancient Hopi civilization actually has a lot more truth to it than we're told? What if these encounters that these ancient civilizations had with these tall white beings from their hieroglyphics actually match up with a lot of the extraterrestrial encounters with these alleged tall white beings, or these Nordic giant beings that are, described as these tall white fair-skinned beings that look like humans with blonde hair, that have been noted by the likes of Billy Meyer and George Hall from the 1970s and earlier. What if all of these accounts from people going to the alleged geographic North Pole, coming into encounters with these giant human beings that have, again, fair, light skin, and they called them the tall white beings. So what if these alleged tall white beings that are spoke of in these ancient civilizations are not, these extraterrestrials from light years away, but are actually from the geographical center of our known realm, or what some people would consider Hyperborea? what would be considered the seventh circle, the area that always has persistent light and the light never goes out, the kingdom in the center of our known realm. And what if these tall white beings are much more advanced than us because they don't have the interruption from the powers that be? They don't live in this, prison planet that we're told it is. They have a much better understanding of the reality of where we live. And they were able to tap into the ether and the magnetic field. They know about electrostatics and electrostatic propulsion. And they've been able to navigate throughout this known realm. And for all we know, they could be coming to our known lands, and they're surveillancing us, and they may be working with other powers that we don't even know of in the lands that we know of. And these beings are just like us. They're just more advanced, and they have a better understanding of the nature of our reality. And this UFOlogy that we know in the mainstream is a huge psyop. It's a cover-up to cover up these other human-like beings from, if you want to call them the Outer Lands or the Garden of Eden or Hyperborea, essentially the center of our realm. And that's what the UFOlogy is covering up. It's one large psyop to cover up the true nature of these other human beings from the center of our known realm. What if even the Gleason's map is not what we're told it is? What if the Gleason's map was all part of the plan? What if they were only wanting to give us a quarter of the truth? When you think about when you first got into Flat Earth, the first map that most people will mention is the flat Gleason's AE map. What if the powers that be knew that the Flat Earth movement was inevitable? And once they knew that millions of people would find out and know that the Earth is flat, they had to release another psyop, another prison planet version of the Flat Earth. What if they released this Gleason's map to the gatekeepers of the Flat Earth movement to have people continue to believe that they live in this enclosed prison planet version of Flat Earth with Antarctica circling the outside and the firmament enclosing them in this enclosed system? Now, this doesn't take away from the Gleason's map. If anything, it only further validates the Gleason's map as being a true integral part of our true reality. But what if this was part of the plan? What if the powers that be only wanted us to know a quarter of the truth?
What if everything we thought we knew about Flat Earth was only a fraction of the truth? 1/4 of the truth, to be exact. First, have you seen the moon map projection where they take the moon and map out the dark spots on it, and they'll show that 1/4 is our known Earth, our known Flat Earth model. Now, we've all seen the clock in Prague, but I want to point something out. You notice the constellation ring here, and the sun and the moon are actually connected right here in the center, showing that the sun and moon go around this constellation wheel. And some say that this constellation wheel might slowly but surely, over maybe thousands of years, move around this bigger circle. Now here's where it gets really interesting. If that's the case, and the sun's trajectory is warming this land, but then also moving through 4/4, right? Then that would mean that this area of ice would be melting and the rest would be freezing. So when I ask Google where Antarctica's ice caps are melting, it's the western area of Antarctica. When I ask where they are constantly freezing, they said the eastern region. Where is the eastern region? Everywhere else in Antarctica. Believe it or not, this is how Antarctica is divided. So where is this western region on the Flat Earth map? Well, let's just say if this were moving around in a circle, this little part would be the one melting, and the rest would be freezing. So then I was looking at the Mercator map, and none of these regions look familiar. But it is weird how they all are in 4 quarters. A clock is sectioned in 4 quarters. Several cosmological and mythological systems portray 4 corners, or 4 quarters. In the book of Enoch, he talks about the 4 quarters. And several verses talk about the 4 quarters. Then you look at the definition of quarter, and one is each 4 equal or corresponding parts into which something is or can be divided, right? Then another definition is the place in which you can dwell, a specific place. Here's what's nuts though. So this is a quarter, as in 1/4 of the whole area. But then it's also a quarter, the place in which we can dwell. What? So with this generalized idea, what else does it explain? Well, it explains lands beyond the ice wall, extra lands. Maybe not this or this, but maybe it's this they're trying to deflect us from. Also, global warming. A lot of people want you to think that the world is getting sicker, and then you've got your conspiracy guys who say it's just a big old money grab, global warming. But what if it's just the natural cycle of our reality? Every so 1,000 years, this moves into another quarter, causing an ice age? Yeah, it would explain ice ages. Because, I mean, if we're being real, there have been some pretty neat discoveries made of animals in ice, undigested food in their stomachs. It would kind of explain mud floods. Hey, they found old world pyramids and buildings in ice. It seems we're always given partial truths on things. Now, I'm not saying that this theory is one that I believe or disbelieve, but it's interesting nonetheless. Look into it. That's the crazy thing. You know, with global warming, all they're talking about is the ice caps freezing. You know, Antarctica freezing. But on the other side, melting. They're talking about the ice melting and all this stuff. But simultaneously, on the other side, it's freezing. So there's
That's what they don't tell you, yeah.
It's an equal and opposite thing. So it's like, you know, climate is changing, but it's due to something else.
Yeah, and we're continually getting gas lit on every corner, you know what I mean?
Hold on. So on a ball, if you know, on the bottom of a ball that's, you know, rotating once every 24 hours, like they say, how is it possible that only half of Antarctica could be melting and the other half is freezing even worse? Like you said, that would be impossible on a ball because, you know what I mean? It's supposed to be making one full rotation every day. So that can't make any sense for only half of Antarctica to be melting on any other model except the one you just showed us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way that could make sense. The only way it could be possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do they? Wow, man, these Globers will believe anything.
Oh my gosh, I know. And that's what I think it is. I think it's a long game. And a lot of people were saying that Eric, you know, and I don't know. I'm just going to throw this out what I've heard other people say that, you know, Eric Dubé was possibly the gatekeeper for flat earth. Like, you know, he was the one who hit the scene, presented the map and everything. People were concerned that he was invited to a lot of conventions, a lot of public get-togethers on the flat earth to speak and to do different things, but he didn't show up to a lot of those things. So it drew a lot of attention to people's minds saying, well, maybe he's a shill of sorts. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is, if someone had a map and they presented it and showed it, right? And that map had the same limits that a globe did, then it would be a little bit strange. And it would almost make you feel like, okay, so if this news were getting out, like let's say that it was getting out, let's say this was getting out, let's say the moon map, the more lands and all that stuff was getting ready to hit the scene. There's been already a few people figuring it out and the news is spreading quick. I mean, if you were the government that was concealing it and you saw how fast it was spreading, wouldn't you think to yourself, okay, we've got to we couldn't stop this at the first gate, so now we need to set up another gate. They figured out it's flat. We're not going to keep them from doing that. But now we need to limit them. Now we need to stop them at the ice wall and have them not go beyond, like literally and figuratively. We got to stop them at the ice wall. We can't let them get beyond that ice and know that there's, more land and stuff like that. Which they gave us this, right?
Right.
And this. But
and honestly, that's a good point that you bring up, because that's the whole point in Gatekeepers, as far as, I feel like, confidently that Alex Jones would be one of those. It's these gatekeepers, they bring you a lot of truth, but they only bring you up to a certain point, and they'll never take you past that point. You know what I mean? And you brought up Dubé. I'm not saying, I don't know enough about him to say yes or no. I know he has a lot of good info, but the purpose of a gatekeeper is to give you a lot of truth, but then keep you in this little box, and you can't go outside that little box. You know what I'm saying? And it's just crazy how that's just so prevalent today, and a lot of people, even in like politics and stuff, they're like, oh, these people are alternative media, whenever they're just basically parroting the same thing that the mainstream is, and they're just slightly giving a different take. Like they don't have any new stuff that they come out. It's just like their whole, say, like YouTube channel is just literally following mainstream media headlines and then just giving their little counter spin on it. Like they have nothing new to offer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a truth sandwich. They sandwich the lie in between two truths, and it's like you can't see the lie for the two truths that it's in between, So it's like you go to take a bite, and it looks so juicy and good. Top bread's truth, bottom bread's truth. It's gonna be great. And then boom, you bit into a lie before you knew it.
That's good.
That's good. That's funny.
It's so true. It's how they get us, man.
Once we start to look at this German moon map and this 4-quarter Earth theory, it starts to tie all the pieces of the puzzle together, from our personal atmospheric dome and our azimuthal grid of vision to the trajectories of the sun and the moon, and even the dome firmament that showed above the Earth on the actual moon map. And we can even see with the 4 quarters of the Earth that it explains the 4 quarters of the Earth that are told in the biblical scriptures in the book of Enoch. It also explains the 7 circles in the seed of life, which again, these the path that these heavenly bodies follow allow there to always be lights in the center of this Earth realm, which explains Hyperborea. It explains Mount Meru. It explains the Garden of Eden, if you will, the light that never goes out in this very center, this geographical North Pole, which, it could explain the other beings from outer lands and the outer lands beyond Antarctica. This even explains the black magnetic mountain in the middle, or Rupus Nigra, or Mount Meru, or, Hyperborea, which, again, this is where the toroidal field and the electromagnetism is centered from this black magnetic mountain in the middle. And it ties all of this sacred geometry and these toroidal paths together, all into one map, into one model that has been hiding in front of us in plain sight this whole time. We look at it every night when we look at the moon, and it starts to make sense why they've gone to such great lengths, the powers that be, to cover this up, to deceive us, to have these psyops and distractions, because the secret's right there in front of us, and it all makes sense, and everything ties perfectly together. So if this German moon map and this 4-quarter Earth theory made as much sense to you as it did to me, and it resonated with you as much as it did with me, please share. Get this information out there. Let's get as many eyes as we can on this model, and maybe more people can discover more stuff that I haven't discovered and that other people haven't discovered. And we can learn more about the truth of this reality. And as always, have a great day.